Hello, exceptional students of Mrs. Whitney's. Welcome to section 3.3, the distributive property. By now, we've kind of touched a lot on the distributive property. We talked about it a little bit when we were simplifying expressions, and we talked about it a little bit when we were subtracting two expressions. So now we're going to kind of do some formal discussions of it. So using the distributive property to simplify this expression. Okay, by now we know that the distributive property is when we take the number that is on the outside of the parentheses and we distribute it to everything inside the parentheses. We talked about this when we were talking about Billy and Sally and the presents and going down the dark alley and all of that. So this ends up being, let's see here, negative 1/3 times 3n subtract negative 1/3 times 6. So this is kind of a long way, but we'll do it. So 3 divided by 3 becomes 1, so this becomes negative n. Subtract negative 1/3 times 6. If I cross simplify this, that becomes a 1. 3 goes into 6 2 times. This becomes a negative 2. And a negative subtract another negative. If I add the opposite, they both become positive. It becomes negative n plus 2. If I write it out that way, there's a lot of steps. It's kind of another way to think about this. If I think about the two terms inside of the expression, I have the 3n, and I also have the negative 6. Now, because I'm multiplying, I can multiply a number times a variable. It's just I couldn't subtract these two together, but I can multiply them. So if I take the negative 1/3 and multiply it by 3n, 3 divided by 3 is 1. This becomes negative n. And the negative 1/3 times negative 6 becomes a positive 2. So that's kind of a simpler way to kind of think about it so that you're not going through all of these steps. But really, we did all of these steps. We just talked about them and did them all in one step kind of thing. So let's talk about this one. If I take 5 and I'm going to multiply it times negative x, and I'm going to multiply it by a positive 3x. Because this is the negative x, and then we can think about this as positive 3y. So 5 times negative x is negative 5x, and then 5 times a positive 3x is 15y, times 3y. Becomes negative 5x plus 15y. And because those are different terms, they're not like terms, we can't combine them, and that's as simple as we can get. So now let's talk about something a little more complicated. So it turns out that there can be many, many terms inside of the parentheses. And all we do is we just continue to take this negative 3 and multiply it times everything inside of the parentheses. So the terms inside are negative 1, positive 7, and a positive 2x. So when we multiply, negative 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. Now the 3 and the negative 21 are like terms, so we're going to combine those. And 21 minus 3 is, let's see here, I'm going to go over here, 21 minus 3, this becomes a 1, becomes 18. So 18, 19, 20, 21. Yep. So that becomes a negative 6x subtract 18. There's no rule that says that the variable has to be the first term in an expression, but mathematicians kind of like that. There's one other caveat to that, but it's not right here, so I'll talk about that at a different time. But we kind of like it when the x is the first term. So let's look at another more complicated one. Okay, so we're going to take this negative half and multiply by to what is in the parentheses. So it's just these two terms. The 2n out there is not parentheses, so it doesn't get to play with this. When you multiply something by negative or multiply something by 1/2, all you're doing is just dividing by 2. So half of 6 is 3, but it's negative, so it's negative 3n. Half of 4 is 2, again it's negative, so it would be negative 2 plus 2n. Combining like terms, I'm going to combine the negative 3 and the positive negative 3n and the positive 2n, so that would give me negative n subtract 2. All right, let's try another one. Again, slightly more complicated. We're taking this negative 8 and we're multiplying it times everything inside of the parentheses. This does not have anything outside the parentheses, so that's just 60 subtract 5. Negative 8 times 3/4. Well, 8 divided by 4 is 2, so that's really negative 2 times 3, negative 6d. Negative 8 times a negative 1 is a positive 8. And now we're just going to combine like terms. So let's see here. We have 6d, negative 6d. I'm going to box and circle all of my terms. So 60 minus 60 is 0. And negative 5 plus 8 is 3. So that simplifies all the way down to 3. And that's it. You're going to go do your notes for future forgetful self. Thanks for watching.